recording. Right. Hey everyone. I hope you are safe and well during these times. I hope you're staying at home and that, and hope you're all right. The reason I wanted to do this today really is because while giving you visual guides is a good idea, I think for some of you especially, I think having a visual guide for these kind of things might be a better idea. So I will try to, the best of my abilities, show what I need to show you. I will be splitting this across a few weeks. Bear with me, because I think if I overload you with everything in one week, then I think we're just gonna get everyone confused. So I want to try and do everything over the course of a couple of weeks. But I do want to try and obviously give you some significant thing to be able to work and get on with and things like that. So obviously you are going to need MIT App Inventor. Obviously you can just access that from a web browser. You don't really need a powerful PC at all. You could even possibly use this on your mobile phone um, or your tablet if you really need to, because it's essentially just a web app. But it might be helpful. And then obviously, if you want to test on an actual phone, you're going to need an Android phone. But what I'm going to do in a separate video that I'll upload with this is I will show you how to set up a Android emulator so you can do your testing on a Android emulator on your own PC. For basic testing like this, any PC will do, because we're not really testing anything significantly like processor or power heavy. If you want to obviously use proper Android apps on the emulator, you will need to enable something, but I will go over that in that particular video. But for basic testing that we're doing for this unit, we should be able to um, just use the emulator, just install it, and it should work. Um, but we'll go over that in a separate thing. So the aim of today's sort of video lesson almost is we want to get the front screen of your app for your second assignment made, and then obviously we want to at least get the basic system for displaying the questions working. So they're the two main things we are going to work on today. So I have pre-made the layout so we can go through this a little bit quicker. But then for the coding, I'm going to be doing that on the video, so you can actually see me physically doing the coding, so you can see what you need to do and where you're going and that sort of thing. So hopefully that will help you out. Also, if you see any weird cuts, I will be editing out anything that's sort of like me mumbling or things like that, because I'm kind of doing this without a script, so just bear with me with this. So anyway, we're going to need two screens. So we're going to make a front screen for so the user can choose to start the quiz if they want to. And then we're going to have another screen that will contain the actual quiz. So they're the two screens we are going to be looking at making today, and then we will start to get some of the coding aspects of it working. So um, with the first screen, this is the layout you're looking for. I will change this to monitor tablet size actually, so it's a little bit easier for you to see, hopefully. And we've got a little bit more room to play with. Remember, you can change the size of your thing on here if you want to have a bit more screen room to play with. Obviously, the app will adjust to the resolution that you're testing the app in. Um, but for design purposes, you might want to put it in tablet view just so it's a little bit easier for you to see. So the front screen component wise is fairly easy. It's essentially just two text boxes and a button. Um, you do see some horizontal layouts. I've not done this to put stuff in. I am only using the horizontal arrangements so there can be gaps between each line of the text and also have a gap between the second line of text and the start. They're essentially just there to make gaps and nothing else. Um, so um, you don't have to have these if you want to. You can make them bigger if you want to, but they're primarily there just to make gaps between each part of each component that we're adding in. So there is a so it just looks a little bit nicer. So on the component size, you want label 1. You don't really have to worry about naming the labels on the first screen. So label 1 is just going to have the name of your app because you can't rename the first screen. Screen 1 has to stay at screen 1. We can only rename any screen from screen 2 onwards. So for the purpose, I've hidden the screen name in the I've hidden the title in the screen settings. So if you want to do that, click on screen 1, and in the property section there'll be an option called title visible. If you enable it, it will show this grey bar, but if you disable it, it will get rid of it. You can also make it so your app actually goes full screen and you get rid of the notification tray or the status bar by unticking that, and it will get rid of the status bar. It won't show it in the preview, but it won't be there in the final app when you test it. So our first label is just going to have the name of our app. So I've called it Stevie's Awesome Quiz App. You can name it whatever you want. Remember for your assignment that your quiz is a maths quiz. Then for the second label, we are going to have press the start button to begin, just to tell the user what they need to press. And then our third thing is we're going to have a start button. Now I've centered the start button. I've done that by putting it in a horizontal arrangement, and then I've set the alignment horizontal and vertically to center. And then I've just changed the width to fill parent so it fills up the entire screen, because if you have it set to automatic, it still won't center. So you need to have the width on fill parent in order to actually get the button to center. I've also disabled the background color, so when it's filled it doesn't have a background. I think it defaults to grey, and you see you'll get that and it won't look very nice. So I've just completely turned off the background. This also helps if you want to set a custom background color if you want to. And then inside that horizontal arrangement we have our start button, and this is what we're going to use to start the quiz and move on to the quiz screen. Is obviously make your second screen. So to add a screen, you click on add screen, you name your screen. For the purposes of this, I've named mine quiz screen. Then you click OK, and your second screen is made. You can flip between your two screens by clicking this drop down menu, and you've got screen 1. Remember, the first screen has to be called screen 1, and then your other screens can be called whatever they want. So I called mine quiz underscore screen, and then here is my second screen. So I highly suggest naming at least the stuff that's in this horizontal box, and we also renamed label 2 to question text. Yep, we already have a question text. So question text, question, let's change that to question label. Question label. There we go. Just so you know what the question label is. So then in the question label you will so the way this is going to work, the obviously we're going to have the title of our screen up here again. So obviously you can hide this screen by clicking on quiz screen and turning off the title visible again. So let's do that now. Then our first label is just going to have question, and then I've added an image. Nice little mask meme. It looks great. Obviously, you can set your height and width and things like that to give it a little bit of customization. Then these three are the important things we need. So this is where our question is going to be shown, and that's why I've labeled it question label, because we are going to need to know this later when we are coding. We are then got question text and submit button both in a horizontal arrangement. So the question text is where we are going to put our answer. So actually, thinking about this, I might be better to put that as answer text instead, just to make things a little bit easier. And then the submit button will be for submitting our answer. And then we're going to change this to submit, just so people can clearly see that it is the submit button. So this is how your second screen is going to be laid out. Make sure you've got the appropriate names for at least these three components. The rest don't really matter, but 1, 2, 3 must be named something that you're going to remember, because we're going to have to manipulate these with the code. So anyway, go back to screen 1. Let's go back to block. So with our block, we want when button 1 dot click, because we want this to happen when our button is clicked. We then want to go to control, and we want to open another screen, because we would like to open a new screen, and we need to put in the name of the screen that we are going to put in our thing. So we are going to add a text, so we can put the name, and in here we need to put in the name of the screen we would like to transition over to. So here we are going to check our screen is called quiz underscore screen. So in here we're going to put quiz underscore screen, so that the button knows that we need to open to this screen, and will then transition over to the new screen. So it's really important that you put this exactly how you writ the name of your second screen. So if there's no capital letters, it must not have a capital letter. If there's no underscore, don't have an underscore. It needs to be exactly how you have named it. So if it's not, it will error when you try and test the app on your phone or Android emulator, depending on which one you're going to use. So next we need to move on to programming the second screen, because that's it. That's all the coding we need for screen 1. It's essentially just a portal to get into the quiz screen. So now we can get started with coding on the second screen. The first thing we need to do, so firstly make sure you're on the quiz screen. So make sure you're here, quiz screen, and then you're in block view by going over here. So we need to tell the program what questions are we going to display to the user, and what answers for said questions that the program's going to need. So I believe I told most classes the week before we went into lockdown to start thinking about making a list of questions to include in your second assignment program. If you did not, I did mention it in an email last week when I gave you the workbook you could use to work on your design aspect of your program if you wanted to. But essentially, that's what we're going to use these for, because we need to tell the program what questions we are going to tell the user and what the answers to said questions are. We're going to do this by using a feature called lists. So if you followed the President quiz tutorial, we're essentially doing exactly the same as that. That's why I gave you that tutorial to follow, because we can essentially use that tutorial as a basis for this program. We essentially just need to add a score feature on top of that program, and job done, and change the questions to maths questions. So I do apologise, my Steam's logged in, so enjoy people logging into Steam and see what terrible games they're playing. So what we first need to do, we need to initialize a global. obviously we always do this to declare a variable. So this first variable, we are going to call it question list. Remember, no space in your variable names. And then we are going to make a list and snap it in like so. So as you see, we currently only have 2 slots available on the list, and we want more slots. So obviously we need to add more slots to said list. So what we can do is we click on this little cog, we can then add additional items to the list. So I'm going to set it to 4 for now. And then, yeah, that's kind of it. So that's all we're going to do. We're going to make that beautiful list of 4 questions, and it's going to be great. So in the questions, obviously, for each one, we want to snap a text component onto the end of them, because our questions are obviously going to be text, and that's the way we want to display them. So we want 4 text things, and in each text box you need to fill that out with each question. Obviously, because it's text, you are allowed spaces and things like that, and numbers and symbols, and that obviously we're just essentially storing a string of text in each part of this list. So it's going to be pretty boring watching me type 4 questions in, so I'll be back after I typed in my 4 questions. I have returned with 4 questions. So this is roughly what your question list should look like. So obviously you're probably going to have more than 4 questions, because I believe I asked you to make 10. So you would have 10 on this list, but for my sort example, we're going to use 4. Obviously, like I showed you earlier, you can just click on the cog and add however amount to your list as you want. So this is roughly what your things should look like. So now we need to get answers to said questions. So we need to, once again, we need another global, and we're going to name this answer list this time, because these are going to be the list of additional answers to said questions. Once again, when I make a list, so I need to add 4 items to said list again, because we need more items added to that list because it's too short. And then for each one, we need a text component again, because we need to store our answers in said text component. Now, for math questions, you could use variables or integers instead of text, but just in case you have text answers, it's better to just make the list text, because it essentially can only store one type of variable in a list, and 2, it will make collecting the answers that user inputs from the text box harder, because they will, if we needed to convert them into integers, we would have to do that first. So it's easier just to make all your answers text. So once again, you need to fill these 4 text boxes out with the answers to your questions. So I'm going to see how terrible my math skills are and work out the answers to these 4 questions. And then I'll be back with the answers in a minute. So we now have our list of questions and our list of answers. So one thing you need to make sure, answer 1 should be the answer to question 1. Answer 2 should be the answer 2 should be the answer to question 2, etc, etc, etc. Make sure this is in the same order as this. It makes your life easier later. So now what we need to do, we need to add a way so the app knows what question we need to be currently on our app. So this is really easy. We're just going to start another variable. So just for reference, orange boxes, we are declaring a variable. It's as if you're declaring a variable. And when we're dealing with blue or purple, we are giving it a value. These are strings, and the one we are going to use now is a integer. So this would be equivalent to declaring an integer variable in C#, like what we did when we were creating the mass values for like our movement in when we were making our games in Unity. So we need to set this to 1 because we want to start on Crescent 1, and then we want to name it current Crescent index, and I apparently can't type. That looks correct. So we are initializing a variable. We're calling it current Crescent index. So what Crescent are we currently on? And we obviously want to start at Crescent 1. You can start at any number, but for the purpose of this, we are going to do it in order, because you could make it so the questions randomly generate. You just need to get this number to randomly change, but then you need to find a way to store what numbers we already had, and then add the ability so it won't pick questions that have already been picked on the list. So that's something you would need to work out how to do. So to make life easier, we're just going to do them in order for now. So our next step is to get our question displaying on the screen. So our final step is we need to get the question displaying on our app. Obviously we've made a list, so we can't just go type it in the box. So we can't just go here, type here, blah blah. We could do that, but let's do it the better way. So we're going to do it so we're going to get that field with code. So we want this to happen as soon as the screen starts. So click on quiz screen, and we want to drag this block because we want to do this when the screen initializes, which pretty much means when the screen starts, do what's in this. So then what we need to do is, do you remember the stuff we set up earlier? We need to click on the question label. This is why I said it is really important to pick what text, name your stuff correctly, so you know which thing you're clicking on. So we want to set the question label text to something, because we want to set the question label text to what we to the first question. So then in this, you know, the list, we need to where it is, select list item. I believe I'm being a dum-dum, don't worry, ignore me. So we need to go to variable, and we need to get the Crescent list, and we want to set the index to a mass variable, and we would need to set that to 1 because we want to go to the first question in the list. So what we need, when quiz screen initializes, we need to click on that box. We want to set the question label text to the select and list item list, and we want to get the question list, and we want the index to be 1 because we want to display the first question in the list. And that is essentially it. So you should be able to go build your app by going build and QR code, obviously for Android, or you can create the APK. I'm going to do this because I would like to test it in the emulator, because I'm going to show you how to test this in the emulator for you to make things a little bit easier. So while this is compiling, in the next video I'll be showing you, I apologise for the banning, my neighbour is working on her loft at the moment. We'll be looking at how we can get this testing on the emulator for your PC. So apparently that should be in my download. Oh, there it goes. Yes, I play Soul Calibur. Enjoy. So download. And there's the APK ready to go. So in the next video I'm going to be showing you how to use Memu to test this app. So see you in the next one.